Well, good evening to those of you who've just come in. Thank you for being on time. Hi, Rob Maloney. Maloney, if you didn't come in on a Monday, I don't know what I would do. I'd go into panic mode. Truly. I'm depending on you. Not independent at all. Completely dependent on my friends and family. Well, I don't know whether uh, advertising sponsored by AI, whether it's going to bring in more people or scare them off. What do you think? All I do is I put the essay or the chapter of the Vaishnav Catechism book that I wrote, and I put that into ChatGPT, and I said I need a poster, a Facebook Live poster, and they put it up. But I don't know whether it scares people off. My daughter says, "Don't do it. Don't give in." Very nice to see you, Alex. Very nice to see you, Mark. Now, can you just give me a sound check, please? Because, as usual, we are not quite sure. We're never sure what the sound is. Pete will always want the sound louder, but he doesn't realise it's probably his ears. Deepak Vora, you're in. You joined the club. Ari, Connor, Jai Chaitanya, Hare Krishna, Pete, Alex, and Linda. Great to see you. Richard, Mark, regular crew tonight. Sound is good. Richard says, I like the ads, I can share them on Facebook. Linda says, I love the posters. Oh, thank you. Yes, Owen. Hare Krishna. Katerina, very nice to see you. Well, let's see if those funny AI posters advertising this session have managed to attract anybody else. Let's begin, shall we? Just finding my place. Thank you for coming in early. It's very good for you to be punctual. Very good of you to be punctual, I should say. This is the last day that my family from America is here, so you might hear them in the background. Children will always shout, no matter what the occasion. Pete's got his headphones. Jeremy and Sam are here. Lisa, Mukahi Yoga, and Satibama, thank you very much. Alright, let's do the let's begin. So, Hare Krishna, Namaste, hello, welcome to episode number 19 of our Vaishnav Catechism, 10 Teachings of Bhakti, which you will notice since we're on 19 has gone beyond 10 classes or 10 talks. But do not worry, we're still on 10 primary subjects, 10 essential subjects of Bhakti Yoga. And tonight we're talking about freedom of the soul. Freedom of the soul. You will have seen the poster that said, rather colourfully described by AI, which says that we're talking about the journey of the soul. Yeah. So last time we talked about the constriction of the soul, the jiva, in Maya, in illusion. And tonight we're saying something about how jiva becomes free. So let me begin by defining the jiva. Jiva simply means life. It is the same thing as saying Atma, which means the self, or in Christian usage, the soul. But we've got to be careful with the word soul because it means different things to different people. I'm not talking about soul music or you've got soul or the soul of something else. What we're talking about is in Christian terms, the soul is a part of the body. In other words, I have a stomach, I have two kidneys, I have lungs, I have a heart, and I have a soul. And sometimes the soul is construed to be eternal, sometimes not. But if we actually ask anybody what is the identity of the soul, then they're very hard pressed to describe it. When Bhagavad Gita, the soul is described as like a body wearing clothes, the clothes being the physical body, and the body wearing the clothes being the subtle and spiritual body. So the jiva is an eternal particle of consciousness. It's a person, but it's distracted from its original nature and purpose, which is of divine origin, divine connection, trying to find happiness in this world, engrossed in matter. It has a false identity and different layers of covering. That's what we did a couple of weeks ago. And it's in transit. If I give you an example of let's say you have a bottle, and in the bottle is water and olive oil, and you'll notice that the olive oil is floating on the surface of the water. So that's the physical and the subtle body. And then if we take a drop of mercury, we put a drop of mercury into that same bottle, we find that it doesn't mix with anything. So the oil and water, sometimes they mix a little bit, sometimes they don't, but mainly they float together. But the mercury doesn't mix with anything, so that's the soul, bright, shining soul, not mixing, but still in touch with, but never merged with. So the soul tries to experience a sense of happiness, but never finds it permanently, and always seeks to minimize unhappiness or distress, but never succeeding to achieve that state permanently. It yearns for the sweet fruit of eternal existence, but every time it reaches out to get that sweet fruit, which is reflected in the water, the soul touches the water, and the fruit dissolves into ripples. That's the problem for us. So life after life, through millions of species, that goes on, and it tries to break free. Freedom is the most dear word for everyone, isn't it? I just want to be free. Freedom means happiness. Freedom means I want to get rid of the limitations that I have, and so doing, I will be happy. So eventually the soul passes through many different species of life and comes again to the human form, and has some dim recollection of the last time it was a human being, and tries to strive again towards its Satchit Ananda, or its eternity, bliss and knowledge state. So what happens though is that, as we just heard previously, we talked about the modes of material nature, the gunas, and the gunas act as a weight on the soul. The soul is aspiring for the higher regions of freedom, but the gunas, the modes of nature, are pulling the soul down. So we always struggle knowing what the right thing to do is. We aspire to be good because we know that good means I will be happier in the end. Bhagavad Gita says that if you do good, it's poison, but you'll be happy in the end. If you're selfless, performing selfless activity, it's poison in the beginning, because you have to give and give and give and keep giving, but it's nectar in the end. However, sense gratification is nectar in the beginning for a few moments, and then poison in the end. So sometimes we strive alone for some sort of freedom, and sometimes we work together with others And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who taught Bhakti Yoga to a great medieval saint known as Rupa Goswami, when he was telling him, he said that there's trillions of living beings and only the minority take any kind of spiritual search. He told them that the inquisitive human being is a tiny portion of the population. The population included trees and animals and beetles and aardvarks and zebras and flamingos and giraffes, lions, and then different types of human beings to the topmost type of human beings. He says the population of the planet can be divided in two: those that can move and those that can't. Trees and plants are living, but they're non-moving, give or take a few. And aquatics, birds and animals move in the air, the land and water. Human beings are a very small part. So this is what he says to Rupa Goswami. I'll read it to you. In the small human community, most members are completely ignorant of spiritual life and have no faith at all in the existence of God. Among those few who do have faith in God and the scriptures, at least half give only lip service while engaging in all kinds of activities against religious principles. So they may say, I'm a very spiritual person, and then they eat all kinds of things and do all kinds of things as if it had no connection to their very spiritual life that they imagine that they're leading. Sometimes they act against even basic moral standards, while in the name they're giving lip service to religion. The activities of the faithless and the lip service eventually degrade to the point where they fully resemble the activities of animals. So unfortunately, when it reaches that stage, human beings then have to take a birth again as animals in order to learn what it means to be a human being. So above them, most people aspire to profit from the business of piety when they say they're sincere. They're called fruitive workers. Prabhupada likes this term. Fruitive means that after the fruits. So we plant the fruit tree and we aspire to see the fruit. So Prabhupada uses this word fruit to make a word which doesn't appear in an English dictionary. Fruitive, a fruitive worker, because they want to enjoy the results or fruits of their good work. They're devoted to God, but they want something back in exchange. They want wealth, fame, a comfortable life for themselves and those they love, either here or some of them want to go to heaven. But it's all about me. I'll serve God, but it's about me. Out of millions of them, some wise persons have a preliminary understanding that they are the spirit, and that therefore happiness is something to be enjoyed by the spirit, not by the body. So that's the cutoff point. That's the beginning point of true spiritual life, when you understand what spirit is. Many times people say, I'm a very spiritual person. When you ask them what is spirit, they get confused. So we should understand that many different things come under that category of spiritual people, spiritual life. Some people, they want a very happy life here on earth, sometimes now, sometimes in the future. Those people who can put off the gratification of a spiritual life, they want to go to heaven and avoid hell, or they want a very good destination in the next life. They want the next life. Some people believe in reincarnation so much that they're planning for the next birth. So one thing to think of now is that if only to have a good life, right? A peaceful life, a good life in this world. If you just want that, you must practice morality, altruism, which stem from compassion. So the Dalai Lama was asked, what could people do to improve their life? He said, best thing for you to do to experience happiness is compassion. And the best thing for other people around you to experience a happy life is that you practice compassion. Compassion is very powerful. It means placing yourself in the position of another and caring for their happiness. So this means this principle of compassion is immediately followed by something called sacrifice. Because in order to do this, we have to sacrifice what I was going to do at this moment for the thoughts and the care and directed compassion towards someone else. So many people don't quite reach that stage of compassion, but sometimes they do, and they perform something called karma. Now we talked about karma. Karma means action. But because action is good or bad according to Dharma, when you do good action, that is known as karma. When you do bad action, that's known as vikarma. So the specialized understanding of the word karma is that karma is according to scriptural injunction, good deeds. Planting a tree is a good deed in India, good deed in Africa, good deed in China, good deed in America. If you plant trees, you're one of the good guys. If you dig a well so that people who don't have water, that's a good activity. So there are universal dharmic activities which are known as karma. Other types of karma include planting a tree or taking the fruit and offering the fruit to not a human being but to a god, a demigod. Offering water to a demigod, offering ghee to a demigod, offering incantations to demigods. And in this way, one is guaranteed that such activity or karma will produce a heavenly life after this very short life is over. And so, yes, we have to think about that. So those who behave in this way are known as karmis. Then there are those who maybe they've heard the Upanishads, or maybe they just heard from the hard experience of many, many lifetimes. They decide they don't want to go to heaven. They decide that only breaking free from the cycle of birth and death will actually satisfy them. Their goal is to achieve liberation. So then they become attracted to knowledge, the path of knowledge of the difference between the soul, matter, and God. This tattva traya, or three truths, is the cardinal subject of knowledge, and knowledge is called jnana. So when you are able, through the process of knowledge, through learning, deep study, contemplation, meditation, sacrifice, austerity, simplicity, humility, celibacy, all of that as a package, when you're able to understand the difference between matter and spirit, you are known as a jnani. But these spiritualists, and they are spiritualists, we can't knock them, they're more interested in monism, of emerging with the oneness of the Absolute, the idea of Brahman. And I think that's the eternal state of existence for the jiva, the soul. And the monist actively tries to dissolve the distinction between himself and God, and seeing that, well, the soul is eternal, God is eternal, that means we're one, there's nothing between us, hence I am God. So it's it's a spiritual pathway which leads to a type of spiritual pride. So they eventually fall back in frustration to activities for material enjoyment. So very similar to the Gyanis, but just a little bit above them are what we call yogis, who take to the path of the eightfold path of Ashtanga Yoga. So by the asanas and the pranayam and their rigid discipline, even their surrender to God, Ishvara Pranidhan, they're able to develop the relationship with the Paramatma. And a few of them, not many, but a few yogis have a vision of Vishnu in the heart. So in this way there's a hierarchy of different aspirations, even within the Vedic circle. Now you may say to yourself, well, that's all right. This is medieval Indian philosophy or Hinduism, that's very good, but there's hundreds of religions all over the world. And we have to examine those to see if there's anything worthwhile in that. One time a lady came to me at Bhaktivedanta Manor and she said, can I speak to you? I said, yes, of course, come in, have a cup of tea. And she was saying, well, I'm off on a journey, a spiritual journey. So I thought I'd come here to the Hare Krishna temple to get some good blessings. English lady from Kingston-on-Thames, something like that. I said, well, that's good. Are you going on a journey? Where are you going? How are you doing it? She said, well, I'm going to Australia. I'm going to sit with the Aborigines, the elders, and I'm going to learn something there. Then I'm going to South America, and I'm going to learn from the shamans. I'm going to study the different Abrahamic faiths and a bit of. I'm going to China. I said, are you sure you're going to get to all these places? She said, yes, I've already booked my tickets. So her idea was to take a little bit from each, or to study, and eventually she would find her truth. So, not a bad idea, but I did caution her that we normally don't get that much time. Now, sometimes people say there's many religions, many paths up the mountain. But I would like to say, from the Vedic point of view, although there are many human religions, I mean, Jesus was one person and he spoke the Sermon on the Mount and his teachings for 3 years. And now, if you look at the Christian yearbook, the annual yearbook, you will see that there's 42,000 different branches of Christianity who believe completely different things. So Jesus was one person, one wonderful person, but 42,000 different ways of putting into practice what he taught. So if you do want to study all the different religions, I would like to give you some advice. Firstly, that wherever you see this religion practiced, and whatever the name of the religion, it can be classified into categories, a multiplicity of categories and subcategories, but according to a number of broad principles. So, primary among that is the practitioner's conception of the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is either you stay within this material world, in this plane of existence, or a higher heavenly plane of existence, or you aim for God completely with no enjoyable byproducts. There are enjoyable byproducts, but they come a long time after. And so we call it the 0, 1, or 2. 0 means nihilism, it means extinguishing of the individual identity, so the Buddhism and Jainism falls into that. The oneness categories, so the Gyanis and the different types of Hinduisms and the Taoisms and the different types of, well, a lot of things actually these days. People are very convenient. They don't want an anthropomorphic God.